Thank you, Sujal, and good morning to everybody. We have a panel discussion on vertical sustainability, innovation for net zero urban development. With this, we have a moderator, architect Anuja Sawant. I would request you to be here. Yeah, please go.
Good afternoon. Before I call all my eminent panelists, I just have, I'm still not out of my hangover of yesterday night. So I thought I should add little spice to it. So I have quick 5 slides and then we'll begin with our panel discussion. Can I have a AV, my PPT? Let me go back, yeah. Can you play video? Please stop the video. Okay, so from sustainability standpoint, high-rises are supposed to be Khalnayak, and this Khalnayak has completed almost 30 years in our country. And when you look at sustainability, it's almost like a sanskari babuji. And sustainability keeps on saying, "Hum aapke hai kaun?" नेट जीरो वर्सेस हाई राइजेस. हाई राइजेस कहते हैं मेरे पास गाड़ी है, बंगला है, तेरे पास क्या है? एंड नेट जीरो सेज मेरे पास मदर अर्थ है. क्या राज को सिमरन मिलेगी? आई एम अ मॉडरेटर. मेरे हाथ में आज कुछ भी नहीं है. मैंने बुलाया है सुपर हीरोज को. तो मेरे 3 टीम हैं. टीम ए जय वीरू है, टीम बी राम लखन है और टीम सी करण अर्जुन है. देखते आज क्या करते हैं. Let me go back. Okay, so I'm going to call out all of them one by one. So my title is Hamara High Rise Hero Ab Banega Net Zero after panel discussion. So can you go to individual CVs please? So my first panelist is Mr. Birju Patel, Director, MEP Con Consulting Engineers. Birju, you are in Team B, which is the central chair. Unfortunately, Gaurav is not coming today. I have suggestion there which I'll discuss with session chair. इतना सन्नाटा क्यों है? तालियां बजाओ. Okay, may I call upon on stage Yogesh Hate, Associate Director, Development Management, RMC Corp, and Executive Core Committee, CTBH India. Yogesh, you are part of Team A. Followed by Anand Patel, of course everyone knows, with a big round of applause, Director Partner PDA, you are part of Team A. Swati Puchalapalli, Founder Director Terra Verdis. Swati, you are part of Team B. Darukesh Maganpalli, SD Corporation, part of Team B. Sandeep Goel, Director Poiron Consultant, you are part of Team C. Harun Siddiqui, Senior Vice President, Corporate Head, MEP, Rustamji Group, Group C. Malay Ghosh, owner, eSpace Architects, part of Team A. Come on, round of applause. After that lunch or something like that. So तालियां जोर से बजाइएगा. Session chair, I have one request. Session chair, small request with your permission and permission from our chairman of City BH India, Girish Dravid. I would like to invite him and become a part of the panel because high rises cannot be complete with structural consultant, without structural consultant. So Girish, I request you to be part of this panel and you can join with team C. हाँ, अभी वाले. Yeah. चलो, मॉडरेटर तो नीचे आ गया है, मेरे हाथ में आज कुछ भी नहीं है. We have 50 minutes. And feel free. I mean, the questions are not specific, but I would like to have all your insights, your thoughts. So it's not restrictive. Only make sure that your responses are a little crisper. So the whole journey we would be enjoying. So just to start my dialogue, whenever I look at the Indian history of architecture, I think we were the pioneers where we started the high rises. Our temples were the high rises and they were absolutely net zero sustainable. Only thing is that those shikharas were not used and slowly and steadily Western country had gave us these high rises. If you remember that in our old times, we used to have everything from the sustainability standpoint. Our previous generations, or we used to use old clothes, recycle things. Now all these concepts have come back from the Western. Don't you all think that we have to go back to the roots? I mean, this is something what all of us need to think of. And that's where I think somewhere I want to start first with Swati because I remember your comment and I'm missing Gaurav in a big way. So where I thought of having 3 teams and where you started commenting on the group and it was quite amazing. So Swati, first my question to you that last 2 days we are all discussing and we are talking about something to come to a fruition. But tell me in reality today, if I have to talk about high rises across globe and India, where are we?
I think there's no getting away from high rises. It's the reality of today's world. Having said that, much can be done in terms of making it more efficient, both with energy, water, resource use. A lot can be done, and we can set our targets really, really high as to what we can achieve with high rises. Having said that, can we really call them net zero or can we really make them net zero is the question. Net zero by definition means do no harm. So can we do that with high rises? There is a limit to what a site can take. There is a limit with respect to energy, there's respect to water, respect to carbon, there's an absolute limit. So if we are trying to say that we are net zero by trying to offset somewhere else, aren't we doing that by compromising on someone else's ability to make their lives or that part? Somewhere we are compromising somewhere else. The impact is somewhere else.
So hold there. Malay, I have a question as an architect to you. That how in design we can attend this problem? Is it possible for the high-rise design itself, where the basic beginning is, what do you need as an architect to have the best net zero design? What is it? Is there any magic potion what you could think about that something like this I need where I could start marching in that direction?
Thank you, Shri, for arranging this great event. So I'll not talk about numbers. I'll talk about the approach to the design. So we cannot deny that 30,000 in 3-story or 3,000 in 10-story.
Perfect.
So that means when you understand this number, we are creating more open spaces around our building. That is not only helping us to disturb Mother Earth, but that will enhance the the microclimate around that development. That's my first thing. Second thing is, through design, we can achieve a lot of things. We can minimize dependence on energies.
I will just interrupt you there. Now, while designing, how much role your structural and MEP, how much contribution you want from them? Because for high rise, it's not only architect who is a stakeholder. So when you're making it net zero, how much percentage of a partnership you feel? That question is I'm going to carry forward to other experts too.
Definitely, you have to work hand in hand. So without them, we cannot make a building a net zero building. But my question is lies somewhere else. That why don't we improvise ourselves as an end user to minimize our requirement? Because these days we can minimize a lot of things. If see, you have 100% ventilation, cross ventilation, even in your drawing room, then you don't need most probably the air conditioning throughout the day, unless to 7 or 10 days in a year. If you have lot of lights in your room, then most probably till evening you don't depend on the lighting factor. So design plays a role here, and definitely they are going to support us how to ensure our backup system in that building to make a building net zero.
Malay, slightly, I would like to take it on another path. I just wanted to understand from you, is there any percentile? Because see, we are all working with the FSI when we talk about the urban development. So is it, I think Girish talked in his presentation about the master planning. Do we have to think about certain percentile of open spaces as against the height or the land development, which is a master layer? Do you think as an architect that could be one of the good solution to come up with the net zero? What is your thought on that?
If you take the examples of abroad, say city like Hanoi, city like Bangkok, city like Hong Kong, you'll find that in urban areas, the concentration of built-up spaces are more. Why? Because they can save their rural areas as a backup to serve the urban areas. So I don't feel that reducing FSI or FAR is going to help us for the development, but the scientific way is the most important thing. And with that, I want to add two more things. Like these implementing committees should have professionals, hardcore professionals like all of you, as a part of that committee. Not the I'm not I'm not I'm not criticizing
Policymaker,
the
yeah.
theoreticians,
Yeah.
but we need practical minds presence in those committees. So we can think like per capita water requirement is 135 liter in domestic. So we have done lot of involvement and innovations in our plumbing sector. Why don't you cut down to 90 liter
Okay,
per
so
capita?
team A, are you in agreement with what he's saying or you want to little bit contradict on that? I mean, I want insight from Yogesh as from a hardcore developer and very sensitive, the vision mission is of sustainability. And Anand, what he is talking about, do you agree with his views or you have some other views?
No, I think good morning to everyone first. First of first of all, I don't agree when architect says हमारे हाथ में कुछ नहीं है. That itself actually puts me down. If architect says हमारे हाथ में कुछ नहीं है तो क्या है?
Moderator है, आज तो रहम करो architect पे.
I agree to him. In fact, last 2-3 days we have been witnessing all the presentation, everything we are looking at, and I was wondering ultimately what all we are talking of. If you have to broadly see everything we have talked about in last 2-3 days, to me it can be summarized in a 3 sector. One is a lean, second is a clean, third is a green. So I agree to him.
Okay.
Lean always comes with a hard work. It always comes with a pain, right? You need to do a fasting to be a lean, right? So I think the first important step when it comes to a building design is to see how lean we are. I would always say that we should build what we need. That's where the lean is. So start looking at your building design, start looking at your consumption, start looking at what is your envelope, start looking at what is the material being used, start looking at the technology, start looking at even from a design point of view. A simple example I would say, I am yet to see a building where, now I go a little technical in terms of, sorry.
I mean, I want Yogesh's view on the
So-
same question.
For example,
Yeah.
you go anywhere and check that you have X capacity of transformer installed in a building. And what is the percentage utilization of that transformer? In a
And then I'm
residential
coming to
sector,
that. I have a lot of questions for you, Birju. So, okay, you are in agreement. Now let me go to the developer first. What developer thinks?
Correct. First of all, let me acknowledge, probably I'm in minority in the esteemed company of consultants and architects. So starting with Swati's point, which Malay and Anand have been trying to build upon, but going back to your main question, whether net zero is feasible in a high rise. So I bring my developer's perspective. An architect can draw it, the MEP designers can, design it. But at the end of the day, it has to make economic sense for the developer as well. I mean, Girish, in his CTPUH presentation, he spoke about regulation. So if regulation is absolutely required, without that, we don't function in any other environment. Stick works better, but that has to be equivocally compensated with a reward if the regulation is being complied to in form of additional FSI or buildable FAR. So that's my quick take on that.
So you agree with Malay, right?
I tend to agree with Malay.
Okay,
Yeah.
so team A is going strong.
In my mind, though,
Yeah.
is 100% net zero really economically feasible today? I have my doubts.
Okay, fine. So let me come to Darukesh. Again, from a developer perspective, now I want to see how Team C and Team B was strong. So Darukesh, when I look at the entire portfolio of SD Corp, high rises, very iconic projects, and the kind of a development which is happening in Mumbai, and you are witnessing the whole development executing. Tell me how these developers preparing themselves, are they prepared enough, or they're still searching for the data information? Are they ready to take this kind of a leap?
Good morning, everybody. From the developer whom I represent here, Shapurji Palanji, they are the first people who have built the tallest residential towers in Mumbai and India at one point of time. And as a developer, there is always a kind of a concern when you go with the high-rise development, whether the design suits the profile of the people who live there, and their requirement will be definitely different than what the other normal buildings will have. The energy consumption will be more here. The requirement will be, the water usage will be different. There'll be high-end amenities which require more energy and water. So as a group, we are always conscious about the fact that we need to minimize our energy consumption. And even in the Twin Tower, what we call in Mumbai, has a robust system of water management and even energy management. We have censored lights, we have lifts which use less.
But is there any preparation started to march towards the goal of net zero for upcoming projects?
Coming to that, net zero is still a nascent concept when it comes to high-rise buildings. Let me be very honest. Even in a boardroom discussion, it never happens.
Never happens.
But we have always taken one step ahead than the market, that we went for LEED certification even when there was no kind of a necessary for us to go for LEED certifications. We went on our own, we told our consultants, we asked them to give us those materials and system which gives us energy efficiency as well as water savings. So even both the projects in our Kandivali are LEED certified. We are gold certified. Our aim is to go for platinum. Net zero as of now, it all depends on architects and the consultants to give us a path where we can achieve that.
So
If
my
we come
question
to
to, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. My question to both the developers, though there is a ample incentive FSI is available, but if you have to reach a goal of net zero, will you consume less FSI?
no, why will a developer consume less FSI? In fact, in India, only two things work. One is compensation or compulsion. So compulsion will not work many times, but compensation will definitely do it. The industry as a whole, we have construction industry doesn't have any support in terms of compensation. Like other cold storage, I went and attended a good seminar yesterday. They've got so many initiatives from the government, but here I'm not seeing that kind of support from government, whether it is state or central, or if
Okay.
there is any, I would like to know
Yeah,
from the
so I
panelists.
want Yogesh your views on the question which I asked. That is it possible, because not all developers are the same. So is there that kind of thought process possible that maybe there is a carrot, but not necessary. You have to think about it. And as an architect, probably that could be the best solution. Or from the sustainability standpoint, you can still go tall, but you will consume less and achieve the target. Will it be a kind of a thinking what developer has to think about?
Yes, we do that. In fact, to start with, I mean, we as a developer, we operate in 6 major metros in India. And it's even before the project is signed off, it's a mandate that every project has to be a LEED platinum certified building. It has to be a minimum gold certification. We don't just design, build, and hand it over to someone. We operate our own assets, so we move into the ARC, LEED ARC, and all those operational, measurements as well. But that's once a building is built and it's put into use. Even before that, on our construction projects, for example, we have, I mean, each construction project has a financial budget that it has to be completed in X amount of rupees at a per square feet rate of whatever it is for that region, for that city, for that project. We have similar budgets for water, electricity, and waste generation. And there's a inter-project competition that we have. Whoever utilizes the least amount of electricity or the least amount of water, the least amount of waste generation and maximum utilization of the waste generation on site itself. So these are things that are coming up. To your question about would we give up FSI? Yes, we have done that in the past in the interest of a project. That happens, and this is not coming inherently because we want to do something differently. This is the need of the market today. Our customers, our occupiers, they demand these kind of data from us. There have been instances wherein tenant occupying X floor in our building has asked for the steel testing report, and unfortunately it was not recycled, it was primary steel, and that's why the client walked away. There are other examples wherein clients want a LEED certified facility, but they want a smoking booth in their office. So it's all up in the air at this point of time. It will take some time to settle. In short, will we give up FSI? Yes, we might for a better project, but it's a long journey to net zero yet.
Okay, so now let me focus on all the MEP stalwarts. My question to all of you, and I want one by one all of you to answer. How much major stake of MEP, is it MEP is the boss now of net zero, and that is what, how all of you look at, and what sort of innovations are required majorly from the MEP standpoint to reach the goal of net zero? So one by one, all of you can start with Birju, Sandeep, everyone, even Harun and Anand. I would love to hear from all of you.
So, what Darup has said that there are two things which works is compensation and compulsion. And so that I agree with him, and I don't agree with him that our architects and consultants have to show us our way. We always show them the way, but they are so price conscious. I mean, everything.
You're
is
fighting
like,
within the team.
no. So, that's okay. So everything is very price sensitive, right?
Yeah.
Everything is very price sensitive. So unless there is a compensation or a compulsion, it is not going to happen. If what he said is that if I think Girish also mentioned that if it comes through a regulation, like people are doing LEED certified buildings, I'm not looking at you, but people are doing LEED certified buildings is because they can enhance their files for the MOEFs, or they can get some extra FSI and all. But very few people, they do LEED only from a very patriotic environmentalist kind of point of view. So
Swati will
compensation
feel
and
happy. Swati will feel happy.
compensation and compulsion works. I still feel that from the regulatory point of view, if something more can be done, uh, all the major developers will take that. Like we had presented one case study and for an architect, and that architect was going to present it to the government. That let's say there is an acre of site. On an acre of site at 3 FSI, how many apartments can be built, and what is the water consumption? And you
Fantastic.
store that.
Malay, I was expecting exactly that answer. Okay, go ahead.
You store that
Yeah.
50% water in your basement.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then you get some additional FSI, because then what happens is that through rainwater harvesting and that 50% water, at least 70-80% of water, your yearly water, you are going to consume there and there itself. So I don't know why it did not go through, but if this kind of uh, regulations can be brought, I think sustainability, we have gone far ahead as far as renewable electricity is concerned, but water is still a major hurdle of transporting the water also and harvesting the water. I mean, I read in the newspaper that in Mumbai, the water harvesting is 0.1% of the yearly rainfall. 0.1 or 0.1% or 0.1, I don't remember that. So 99% is going to the sea. So how do we do that? I think if you have
So
a
I think
regulation-
I will shift gears to Sandeep and Harun and Anand again. I want to hear about the innovations. Is there any innovation, or the current systems are fine? I mean, all those thoughts also I want
Thank you.
to come on the dais.
Anuja, I think one of the slides which I can see and picturize yourself, where the green building is the Karan and the net zero, the tall building is the Karan and the net zero is Arjun, and you are at the railway station hoping Karan Arjun aayenge. So I think that's what your mission always remain as an architect, to strive both the goals. Predominantly, if you really see from my understanding, the green buildings or the tall buildings are limited in this country only of three different types of occupancies: hotels, homes, and offices. You are actually only allowed to have these three types of construction, which you can really make tall. When I say tall, more than 30 meters typically. Everything else is stopped at 30 meters typically, and only these three are allowed to go beyond. Now, we here need to hear from each other as well as to agree and disagree. One of the points I would like go to back to Mr. Birju is also, in a green building, we do not have a choice of, I would say, the developer to take a call on the cost. The cost is already spent the day you decided the height of the building. The embodied energy on the valves which you will provide, the piping material which you will provide, the systems you will provide for lifting the water from the ground to the upper floors is also more or less fixed. I do not see the lightning protection system is fixed. The overall design planning requires a certain aspects which you have to meet for the safety and the performance of the building. You are hardly left with a choice to reduce any of those ratings, because that will lead to the failure of the system per se. So as an architect, as a consultant, we have to be very clear about recommending our requirements to the owners, black and white, and not be confused ourselves as to we can do it like this and we can also do like that. Typically speaking, one of the major issues which I also see, that we do not have a lot of data available relating to tall buildings EPI.
So everyone agrees that there is no enough data available right now, and the policies are still at the nascent stage. So all of us have that agreement on that, right? So there is a lot of work which needs to be done there. We are just 6
Yes,
years
so
away.
what happens is you have got different types of climate zones, which has got data. You have got different types of building typologies, a hotel, a hospital, an office, a residential. Typically, all those typical EPI indexes are available to us to see. Different climates, different buildings. But tell me a building less than 100 meters, 100, 200 meters, 200, 300, tall, super tall, mega tall. So that's a very different spectrum altogether in CTUBH. But if you really ask me, what is the spectrum of EPI indexes for different tall buildings under the category of hotels, homes and offices, we have that data missing. We really do not know what we are trying to chase. We have LEED certifications, we have IGBC, we have got all kind of certifications, but we do not have data relating to tall building aspirations. So I will stop here for a while, but I just want to tell you over here that basically what happens is that innovation, if you talk to me about, a lot of innovation is already available in design handbooks and guidelines for tall buildings. So if you really look at the ASHRAE guidelines, Council of International Code Councils, plumbing guidelines, fire guidelines. Now fire is not a culprit in green because it doesn't consume any energy. The pump becomes very heavy, high kilowatt, more cost, but not the energy part of it. But most of the systems are today available. The National Building Code accepts to provide you transformer at level 30, level 40, level 60. All that innovation has started appearing in the NBC 5 years ago. That has got inspired from our exposure of working in other countries, from global standards. Having a transformer at upper level reduces the energy losses. Distribution of plumbing systems with right pressure zones, very clearly explained in our codes and standards. Lightning protection system safety requirements are very much there. STP does not change because of a tall building. Rainwater harvesting does not change because of a tall building. Certain elements are static. Certain elements, major culprits, plumbing. And another next level of culprit is a little bit of HVAC distribution with respect to the zonings of the system, and electrical distribution system. If you have a tall building, then the LT panel side of it. So typically I'll stop here.
Yeah.
A lot of documentation is already available for design of benefit of people like us.
Okay, so Anand and Birju both agree with what Sandeep is saying, or if you have anything to add, please add. Then I'll go back to Harun and I have to yet talk to Girish.
From the pricing point of view, what I meant was that I was comparing a net zero to a LEED certified building. So if you have to go to net zero, if we are wanting to go to net zero, there will be somewhat more pricing which will be required from the project part of it. Like I said, storing of water or renewable or whatever it is. So the budget will increase a little bit if you are aiming to go to net zero, not from the LEED. That is what
I get your point. Let's hear other views. Absolutely.
What is
So I
your
think,
take on that?
To answer your question on innovations,
Yeah.
if I see generally the MEPF industry, probably in terms of bringing the efficiency or improving the product or a system or innovation, they are up to the mark. In fact, what we see as a contributing, if you see a building, you see the building architecture, you see the building structure, you see the building services. From a last decade or so, the biggest improvement or maximum improvement has happened on a MEP front.
Absolutely.
That's because of the product, services, the new technology, etc. So I agree that innovations are there.
Yeah, because typically, Swati, I want to ask you because all these young generation, young architects are working with me, and typically I find that they give up a lot of things. So when it comes to net zero, and you are part of SDI, you could see that this time winner was net zero tall residential building. So from that standpoint, if I have to look at the stakeholder, who has got a biggest stake in the entire net zero process? I have yet to come to Girish, but before that I want to understand from you. Or it is equal 30-30, 20-20 and everyone has to contribute because right now it is not only left to the architects. So
I think everyone is a stakeholder there, not just the builder.
but not the structure and MEP more now when we talk about net zero?
No, I think the architect.
Really?
Architect has a major
ये
part
तो
to
हाथ ही
play.
नहीं है.
Because the ability for design to be lean starts with the architect.
Okay.
You know, the responsibility to make a design lean starts with the architect. So then comes of course, the MEP consultants. And of course, the biggest stakeholder, I would say, would be the users and their aspirations. What do they mean? What is it? Do they really want? Do they really understand net zero? Does net zero come with any change in lifestyle? How much change in lifestyle are they ready to accept? You know, it can't be business as usual and expectation of net zero. Everyone has to put in their efforts, including the users.
Okay, so let me come to Girish. Girish, you have a lot of research. Harun, I'm coming to you. I've not forgotten. You have a lot of research on net zero carbon structure because that is something which is another giant and most important part of high rises. Even we had our seminar on net zero carbon structure. So, what is your views and the role which structural consultant has to play when it comes to net zero carbon or net zero and sustainability and from the high rises?
Question. Naturally, see the biggest embodied carbon, the most embodied carbon in the building is in structure, because you are consuming almost more than half a cubic meter or up to 0.8 cubic meter per square meter concrete. Production of cement and reinforcing steel or structural steel, that itself is so much energy guzzling and resource guzzling that you just cannot avoid spending that much carbon in procuring those materials. So I think there is a lower limit below which you cannot go in terms of structural construction. But of course, I like the phrase Anand uttered, that is lean, clean and green. And we structural engineers have been practicing this for some years now. So lean is, we try to give as lean a structure as possible, consuming least materials and all that thing, giving you the invisible structures wherever possible. Lean, clean is again, clean is spaciously clean, and they can be utilized for more number of usages over their lifetime. A hotel can be converted into office and it can be converted into residential. That is our aim.
What I meant from a clean perspective was that one is you build.
Yeah.
Second is to what extent you are able to use what you have built.
Right.
Today, if you see the kind of wastages, leakages in the system, controls, etc., the operational efficiency of a building is about being clean.
That's
so that needs an attitude.
Okay, I interpreted it from structural
You need
point
to
of view.
operate it efficiently.
Yeah, fine. So that's all my perspective. And green, of course, we are trying to use different materials, recycled materials, and all that is happening.
But
So-
still, it is at the innovation level. So, what is going to happen within next 6 years for 2030? What is going to happen? Where we are going to reach? Up to what milestone we are going to reach? We
No,
we
as
have
I
all
said-
set goals. Everyone is talking on the
No,
presentation.
as I said, there is a limit to what we can reduce, in our materials. Because ultimately the performance of the building is very important. You cannot have, unsafe structure, the structure which is moving too much and accelerating too much. We cannot have that. So there are performance criteria for which minimum cost, minimum materials have to be used. So beyond that we cannot go. Now, as Swati rightly said, the onus of creating not net zero, but approaching towards that a structure really lies with architect. And we may have a lot of good systems. MEP may be having a lot of innovative and modern systems, but it's the architect who has to incorporate those things in the planning and design of the building. And that includes facade also. I mean, we don't have a facade person
Facade,
here,
yeah, right.
but going after fancy elevations and all that, architect has to understand what is the focus. Is it net zero or an iconic building or a super luxury energy guzzling building?
But
So
Yogesh,
that's-
will you? Sorry to interrupt. Yogesh, will you agree with if I'll give you mediocre elevation and
No, I agree. I mean, Girish is talking from the design standpoint. And
Okay.
today, we are, with the help of the structural consultants and then having a couple of peer reviewers as well into the mix, bringing down the structure to the bare minimum, wherein the embodied carbon is as least as possible. Building up on that, pretty soon by 2030, we would have moved to.
Yogesh, my question was slightly different. If he said that mediocre facade or maybe the net zero facade, but not so aesthetic facade, will that be acceptable for the commercial building? If architect tries to sell you that kind of idea, will you take it, or will you ask me to innovate?
No,
That's
we
the
won't.
challenge before architect, I should say.
No, it's not
Why is
necessarily. I mean,
net
it's
zero
a.
facade supposed to be Not,
Yeah, exactly.
Not happening.
Exactly.
not good looking.
Not good looking, exactly.
Yeah, why should it? That's the architect's role, isn't it? To make a net zero facade.
Architect is here. I'm a poor moderator.
Net zero facade can be interesting also, you know.
So you have
I
to
mean,
jump into it.
Yes, definitely. It can be interesting.
Yeah.
See, my belief is when there is a constraint, you will come up with the best solution for that. So, like you can introduce a lot of things. Say you can take example of Mr. Ken Young's sustainable buildings. There are a lot of greens in the entire height. You take Kandalama, Jeffrey Baba's hotel. Now these days you cannot see that hotel in. So net zero doesn't mean that it is going to produce a mediocre look. So it depends how you are tackling it. But I have a definite argument on our subject. See, we are talking about conceptualizing, we are talking about building a net zero structure, maybe a super mega stall structure. But what about operating that building? That is the most important because the inhabitants of that particular development, they must know how to maintain a net zero building. I think that is more important than conceptualization.
Great point. Harun,
And for that, I have a request before you, sir, that why don't you have the common mass part of this kind of sessions so that they can understand the demand of net zero and how they are going to tackle with those buildings, and they also can demand from developers, architects, and all other consultants that we need these kind of things. We need proper roof insulations. We need green spaces all around my thing. So that is more important. So we have to reach to common masses. I think that in that way only we can reach net zero India in 2070.
so question to you, Harun. When we look at the projects with Rustamji, and if Rustamji thinks about a net zero project, do you think that the MEP areas are going to be larger than what we are planning today? And how the operations of such buildings you would look at? And what could be the challenges or innovation, or what you would be asking all the MEP consultant to design?
Thanks, Anuja. First of all, for the design, I will take only 30-40 seconds because design we are talked too much. And something is now existing for the net zero or what you say green building. And in layman language, for the customers' comfort and for reducing the OPEX, so many things has happened, and now in transition, things will come, no, so many innovations will be there, but the basic engineering remains same. I will start my conversation when this conclave was started. Sujal has the inauguration session. So for the architects, I have one request from the MEP perspective. जो सुजल ने इनॉग्रेशन में एक छोटा सा कविता पढ़ा था कि मुझे मेरे जीने का हक चाहिए, तो इक्विपमेंट्स के लिए स्पेस चाहिए, उन्हें सांस लेने के लिए जगह चाहिए. So there is a practical situation over there. Architects have their own limitations and this, and to overcome this, they have to be more open to the MEP services because that is the major cost. Your question is very right and appropriate from a developer perspective.
Yes.
Because we used to handle the buildings after the handing over when the society forms.
Okay.
We used to handle the building even after 10-15 years, calls comes to us. If lift is not working or their energy bill is very high, so people are coming to me after 6, 7 or 8 years of the operations and they are questioning how you. In that, first thing is you have to go to the correct doctor. There is a dearth of MEP consultants because there is a too much work is in the market, and the first thing is the doctor should be correct. We should have a good MEP consultant, and being a good will not work in this world. You should have authority also, and you should present your things what you required. We are working all top consultants, and by God grace we had delivered one of the iconic buildings, and on those operations I am involved very heavily, to the customers also, to the operation team also. So in that, what I am seeing, we should just relax, exhale and inhale for the design and for the innovations and these things. The biggest innovation, I think, is while you are designing, see for the maintainability point of view. If I put the stainless steel pipes also, everything also, but inside if the pressure is more, because high rise you have the limitations, you have the PRVs and the bottom floors you have. So for that overcome, my correct doctor who is here, he prescribed some solution to that work very well. We introduced the individual PRVs to each flat, so which is reduces the leakages. So then it is ultimately saving your thing, because some things are well defined, you cannot compromise on that. How you will educate people, you don't consume water, you don't take a nice bath, you don't have a rain shower, so those restrictions you cannot put. And to achieve the goals of the sustainability, it is not to make you a saint, or आपको ऐसा स्पिरिचुअली करके आप 10 दिन में नहा लो तो नेट जीरो हो जाएगा, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, रोज क्यों नहाने का है, ऐसा तो नहीं कर सकते. बट उसके लिए वी हैव टू डिजाइन इट. एंड as I said, design के बारे में तो we had spoken a lot, but after the design, the main stakeholder, the facility management, and before they are entering, they should be educated what we have designed and what is our target. Like Sandeep said, that EPI. In our new projects at Ustamji, we are just calculating the EPIs and we are targeting to reduce those EPIs, and those targets we are giving to our MEP consultants. You work around this. And for the cost, as a developer, I see the MEP cost is between 15 to 20%. And if you see a very small tower of 20, 30 stories, so it's 100 and 100 crores. So that cost doesn't matter. But it should be presented in a viable manner, and there is a business. And for the FSI consumption and this, to achieve the net zero, no developer will just compromise on that thing. But the good thing is, in this business now, these ESG goals are correlated. Investors are asking. At Rustamji, when we are attending the investors meet and this, so we have a special slides
so
on
Gaurav,
this.
I'm going to little bit cut you short there. My question was, which sort of policies, if we have to, policies needs to be changed to get this leap. Which policies? Can you just list it out one by one, that this policy I need a change, or this policy I need to change?
First policy we need to change is the correct design, and for the design there should be a certain data based things, because
Who is supposed to create that data?
consultants, architects, end
Okay.
user, and most importantly, you stopped me in between. The most important stakeholder, all this in conversation and to achieve the net zero target is now the design is freezed, design is good now, technological innovations are taken care by the consultant, they are implemented. But who is operating, they are missing, their presence is very less. Even in these type of conclaves and this, more than us, they should be involved, they should be trained,
Right.
and that should be cascaded to the bottom level and the technicians who are operating. Because what happened, I had put the VFDs, everything, but if somebody is bypassing, so what is the use of that? If somebody is not using, I had given a state of every system, but that sensors are not working and tank is overflowing. Lakhs water is just getting waste. Pumps are not maintained properly, fans are not maintained properly, lifts are not maintained. So this energy consumption and water consumption and all those things are this. So for this maintenance data, policies for maintaining, preventive maintenance, and at Rustamji, what we have done in last, because we have these high-rise buildings and we are very conscious for the maintenance of this. In the design and installation stage, we involved our in-house facility management team. You see, this is the system, and at the time of testing, commissioning, they are witnessing the testing and commissioning also. And in just, I will conclude by this thing. Anything which is not getting monitored cannot be measured, and there should be some deterrence. So for that, our whole data, everything is on cloud, this BIM 360. So whenever the technician is visiting, so he is making the data, taking the photographs, and it is uploading on the cloud, and anybody can see that, and the bills and the benefits are all interconnected with this. So it has shown I had seen last 2-3 years a great improvement in the maintenance and the records.
Okay, but how we are going to reach to net zero? Can we use this data and plan a twin of it where this can be achieved? This question is to all of you. You can, it's open, or anybody can start answering. Yeah, go ahead.
So I totally
One by
agree.
one.
Hello.
Yeah.
See, we certainly have data about embodied carbon. I mean, the materials which go into manufacturing of equipment and materials which go into construction of the buildings, the embodied carbon indexes are more or less known. And we as structural engineers have started doing those embodied carbon calculations along with tender costs and all that. So we have reached there. Even MEP people can do it for the installed equipment and low end, high end, everything is possible. Most important, and we keep saying we don't have data, we don't have data. What is that data that we don't have? Is the operational data. And operational carbon is the, it's much more than embodied carbon. I can say that. Because you are staying in a building for 30, 40, 50, maybe 100 years for large tall buildings. So that data is not with us. And instead of just saying we don't have, it's high time we start monitoring the operational data. And embodied carbon data is already there. If we start monitoring and then simultaneously learning from that, start educating the users what to do about that data, I think that is the way to go towards net zero.
Biju, you're next. Then I'll come to you, Swati.
I was just going to say, I think Girish has already said that we already have some data, we don't have some data. So whatever the data we don't have, let's benchmark it and then keep on improving that benchmark. So I think he already alluded to that.
Okay. I think there is a certain amount of data that can be used to start the process. Of course, it's not as extensive.
Can you elaborate what do you mean by certain amount of data?
So there's data about energy use in terms of EPI for various typologies. Of course, it's not there to the granularity that we would want. But there is something that is already there. There is also data about water use to a certain extent. Best practice benchmarks and targets are all in place. They're there. One needs to probably look for it a little more deeply. So this data, embodied carbon data is also there. Waste generation data is there. So we do have data, but we don't have it to the granularity that we would want. And this is where one could go towards it, but that shouldn't stop us from doing what we can in improving our building stock, in improving all buildings to meet higher and higher efficiency targets.
Anuja, on this, as MEP consultants typically, and maybe I may be corrected, we do not have too much of say on embodied energy.
Okay.
In many years of working, I have not gone into a PN25 versus a PN16 valve. What is the embodied energy concept of that, typically speaking? What you say EPI, and I agree with her as well, that EPI data is generally available. And EPI is all about OPEX. It's not about typically CAPEX. It's all about OPEX. So on OPEX, first we have to benchmark a similar building of 2.2 million square feet is, let us say, not a high rise but a spread out building. What energy pattern would it have? We should see that energy pattern, whatever it is, should be then transformed into a high rise, and how closely we can come to the parameters despite it being high.
So first sleeping high rise and then vertical high rise.
Yeah, what is that?
Sleeping high rise and then vertical.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So what happens exactly, if you ask me, water consumption in a high rise is no different than a low rise.
Low rise, yeah.
The energy which it takes, we're talking about elevators are again one of the biggest energy guzzlers in our
I was coming to that, exactly.
elevators with regen, and as Harun Sahab also said, we talked about ESG. Today, nothing is hidden. Everything is being opened up and to be talked about. So internally, we need to see what is a sleeping and a high-rise kind of a building scenario. How close can we come, despite being its high-rise profile, efficiencies could be brought into without compromising the performances for it to be taller. I think as a community, if we do that study of EPI, of a spread out versus a tall building, try to achieve our goals, we'll be more efficient. Embodied energy, pardon me, but on MEP, and we can share others' opinion.
Yeah, I want Anand's opinion on this.
Embodied energy wise, I don't think we are too much into the deep understanding as far as MEP is concerned.
Okay.
I think
We are just left with last 5 minutes. So,
from the data point of view, probably we have the general data available. So we need to sort of, now we have enough of a tall building. We have enough experience of operating tall buildings.
very true.
And last 5, 6 years, 7 years, we have seen people have the data. We need to look at those data we need to analyze. Yesterday we had a session on the hospitality sector. Every hotel is monitoring their energy on a different routes, on a different spectrum. So we need to look at those data, we need to analyze it, and then probably we need to use that for a design. I think that's a way out.
Okay, so which building typology is toughest to attempt for net zero? One by one, quickly.
Definitely, it's a high-rise building which is difficult to, at least in this.
For how many more years?
No, government has announced that they want to reduce the carbon emissions, and being an industry which produces at least 30% of it, what are the hand holding it has to do? It is not coming up. That's my reading. Look, today we have the materials to use. Like Birju told, if I use that material, the cost is going to go up by at least 1,000 rupees a square feet in a city like Mumbai. Who is going to pay that? The client, the end user. Okay, and not many end users are willing to pay in the same locality if I charge more than the others. Although I am a net zero building, if not net zero, I am an environmental friendly building. Are you ready to pay that much? But why not government incentivize those clients, not me directly? At least the person who is getting, and today we had a wonderful session with a young lady, Prachi. If she has developed a app on her own, why can't government develop an app so that it can monitor the building's health and give some kind of incentives to the residents of those
Can
buildings?
developer start and present it
A
to
developer can build, but
government that we
maintenance-
have developed and you can go ahead with something like this? Yeah.
When we say that tall buildings are energy guzzlers and all, but if you have, let's say, 5-acre property, and if you are going to build a 100-floor building, or you are going to build a 5-floor building, the 100-floor building is going to have so much of forest around.
Correct.
So we are
Exactly.
not factoring that into it.
Absolutely.
So I mean, net, we should. I don't have an answer to this, to be honest.
Right.
But we should look at net. That if a tall building is going to be, let's say, 20-30% more.
So
it's
all
going-
tall is not khalnayak. That's what I'm trying to say. That you have to please understand the proportion land parcel. Absolutely right. Right.
Those things will, that is why you keep talking about urban density. I mean, you design for
Absolutely.
density.
Density.
You design high densities so that your ground coverage is less.
So-
And lot of earth is left for trees and green and other things, water bodies and all that. That's the whole concept of designing density.
So actually, I'm left with 3 minutes. Can we? I mean, each of you, I want a concluding remarks from all of you, and then I'll make my conclusion.
So I don't believe that tall buildings are difficult to design for a net zero. It's
Great.
not about what is that difficult to design.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a X energy consumption. Your approach is to bring down to 0.7x, 0.8x. That's your first approach, right? And then you are already into a scope 2 emission. You need to have that power. You are getting that power from somewhere else. So you look at then the scope 1. What is the quality of your power? So if you are able to access the good source power or renewable power, you reduce your demand and do a net zero. Now when we go to absolute term, for example, net zero water. Now net zero water is a problem in a tall building. The math which we spoke about, right? Every person needs a 50,000 liter per year. India's average rainfall is 1083 mm. What does this mean? If we have to get rainwater from a building and sustain the building net zero on a water, we need 50 square meter terrace area per person. Now India's average floor plate is a 50 square meter. So when you do a tall building, it is going to be divided by so many floors. So that's logically
the
a difficult.
innovation,
That's a
yeah,
logically
yeah.
a difficult proposition.
Yeah.
The math
We need
doesn't
Rajnikant
work.
for that.
But otherwise, net zero waste or net zero energy, I don't see any difficulty.
Okay, fine. Mala, your thoughts. Yeah. I will come one by one because we are
That is
just
my
running
view
out of the
also.
time.
I think I'm absolutely agreeing his points.
Okay.
And that point can be looked at the whole effort of this team, that how we can increase terrace areas in high rise also. That is also possible. And those kind of experimentations are going on throughout the world. So we have examples and we have to abide by that.
Okay. Yogesh, your thoughts?
Less than a minute left, so I'll be very brief. So
Yeah.
there was a question that came up whether high tall rises or urban sprawl. My vote is for tall rises. And as far as net zero, we all have signed up. We need to sign up. It's a journey. It's a goal. Sooner or later, we all need to make whatever efforts in our professional as well as personal lives to get there. So that is it.
Yeah. Viju, your thoughts?
My thought is we need to improve.
Yeah.
There is a benchmark today of whatever 0.5 watts per square feet or 10 watts per square feet or whatever it is for different category of buildings. Keep on improving. The equipment manufacturers, we saw Carrier presenting, the equipment manufacturers are doing their bit. We will do our bit. So I think the benchmark has to improve.
Raise the bar every time. Larukesh.
The-
I'll see next
the-
imperial
the
tower with
intention-
net zero.
The intentions are clear. It's a need of the hour. Everybody has to
Yes.
work towards it. There is no escape from that. But like Anand told, water harvesting is one of the major. Energy will be more or less will be sorted in another 10 years.
Yeah. Swati,
But
your
water,
thoughts? I'm
there'll
sorry,
be-
I have to cut you short.
There'll be fights between
Fights
water
between the water.
restoration.
Yeah. Swati.
In its true sense, net zero depends on the carrying capacity of the site, what
Right.
it can take.
Right.
So be it energy, be it water. So I strongly believe that let's be careful about using the term net zero. Let's use it correctly. It can be high efficiency, ultra high efficiency, but not all buildings can be net zero, especially if you're
Agreed.
depending
Yeah.
on sources outside the site.
Absolutely. Girish, your
So
thoughts?
to solve problems like water problem, going net zero for a particular building, instead of looking at one particular building, we should think of district level or cluster level, where larger land area can be utilized to catch as a catchment and then recycle that water.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to.
Arun,
water.
your thought, and Sandeep.
Just quickly, I have 2 points we had discussed. First is HVAC industry has to play a biggest role because we have the energy consumption of 70 to 80%. So in high rises, the design, lot of more scope is required to do that. And in a concluding this, another challenge is, especially I am from Mumbai. So Mumbai there is a challenge because we have the rehab buildings, and you ask what is the most challenging building. Now in the rehab buildings, at one floor plate we are having 14 floor flats
Absolutely.
and 50, 60 towers.
True.
So that design I request consultants, architects to look into that.
Yeah.
And
And
because-
developers also have to look at it. Give
So
me
that
that
is the
kind of a
biggest
brief.
challenge, and maybe in Indore we
Yeah.
can discuss a lot about that because at that time those projects will be in shape.
Yeah.
Or these are on the so lot of projects are
Yeah.
coming
Sorry,
like
Arun,
this
to cut
type.
you short.
Okay.
Sandeep, over to you.
Anuja, it is net zero. I'll say thank you.
All right.
So I would say only one thing, I can't add more knowledge. We have the commitment and we have the knowledge. We can do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, my panelists. And I'm going to leave you with इसी चीज को अगर सच्चे मन से सोचो तो पूरी कायनात उसको बनाने में जुट जाती है. So thank you, Jai Veeru, Karan Arjun, and Ram Lakhan. You have a question?
Okay, so, yeah, please,
You can come here.
come here.
Yeah, we are late.
Okay, I just have one straightforward question. We're talking about sustainability of buildings. All of us sitting here, we build and we go back. And then it is given to the facilities management and the owners association to maintain the building. Who is going to monitor whether the building is maintained in the required sustainable method where we can achieve net zero? I think I'm straightforward and crisp in my question.
Yeah, Arun actually covered all that part.
He said, but what is the
But
process
short
we are going to
short-
follow is not
But
covered.
short answer to that, when we are taking the certification, so that renewable process covers your question. If it is somebody honestly, religiously, societies are renewing that, so that all answers, because IGBC is doing a great job in monitoring and certifying that, and they are auditing also, especially in high-rising testing, commissioning, witness is also in their scope, and while renewing the post-construction, so they are auditing.
Sujal, over to you.
Any new technologies for water harvesting? Because in the buildings there is hardly any space today to do water harvesting pits, and all the roads are concreted. So most of the water is as such going away. I think some new technologies is anything being thought about it to harvest more water into the ground. Thank you.
So the technology is available, but space is not available in a city like Mumbai. Like Girish mentioned, that we need to have a district level kind of a rainwater harvesting system. So each area will have its own rainwater harvesting system. That's where the policy of the government has to come in. And a building, most of the water in this rainy season also, we just throw it away to the storm water because we can't store it.
That was Anand's part.
I will just add one thing, Anuja, sorry.
So sorry to Sujal and session chair.
Just I have a wide idea for rainwater harvesting. He has asked. So like power purchase agreement, we at off-site we have the power purchase agreement. We purchase the power and we use the credits. So I request Pankaj ji to take up this.
Sujal, thank you all, and given a very good thoughts on this. There are mixture of architecture developer and the MEP consultant. There are few points were really good, and I mean definitely we'll take it forward on this. Thank you, Sujal. Thank you, Anuja.
Thank you so much. A big round of applause for a wonderful panel discussion. I would now request Mr. Utpal Biswas, the session chair, to felicitate Ms. Anuja Sawant. Madam, can you please come on stage? I would then request him to felicitate Mr. Birju Patel. Mr. Girish Dravid. So, yeah, the name would not match, sir, but I would request you to, yeah. We shall get it changed for you. Mr. Yogesh Hare. Mr. Anand Patel. Ms. Swati. All of them together. Mr. Tarukesh. Mr. Sandeep Goyal. Mr. Harun Siddiqui. And I would now like to request Mr. Sudhir Mathur to please come on stage and Mr. Pankaj Darkar to felicitate Mr. Utpal Biswas. A very power-packed photograph. With the permission of session chair, can I join for the photograph?